Welcome to the Science to People podcast, where we turn cutting edge health and science insights into information that's discoverable, understandable, and actionable. I'm your host, Brinley Murphy-Reuter. This season, I'll invite scientists, researchers, communicators, and academics from all across my network to share their groundbreaking insights with all of you. Meanwhile, I'll do my best to make sure you can actually apply those insights to your everyday life. Today's guest is Dr. Laura Marciano. She's a research associate at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and a researcher at the Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital. She's also a good friend of mine. Her work explores how digital media, especially social media, impacts youth well-being and development. If you've ever wondered what TikTok, Instagram, and screen time are really doing to our brains, or what they could be doing to help us thrive, this conversation is for you. Now, let's get into it. Welcome, Dr. Laura Marciano. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so glad.
It's fun to have you here. I know that we're friends. We know each other, obviously. I think that it would be silly not to tell everybody that. But we met through work. We met at Harvard. I learned about your work, and I believe I reached out to you randomly because somebody told me that you were studying digital well-being, and I thought that was awesome. And I wanted to know you. And now we work together at Boston Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, you did reach out to me, and I still remember like those moments of bringing together a group of people doing research on this topic. And I was so grateful because everything you have been doing to improve the science communication around this topic, digital media use and well-being, has just been a wonderful work. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for your work. It's really groundbreaking, I think. So the premise here is that we're going to have a conversation and talk about what you do and how we can actually make it accessible to everyday people, right? So my first kind of question for you is like, let's say we're both stuck in a really long line at a coffee shop. Okay. If I turn around and say, hey, like, all right, we're here for a while. What do you do for a living? How would you describe your research and work in the simplest way possible?
Well, that's a tough question, I have to say. I just say I do research on digital use and well-being, especially in young people, period.
Okay.
And yeah, and then it depends on how much do you want to know about that. And usually people answer, oh, that's very relevant right now. And I'm like, yeah, that's quite of a hot topic. And there is so much going on. And then I will start to say, and we are using phones to collect data, use this weird thing that is called ecological momentary assessments. That is basically we're just sending you surveys throughout the day multiple times to understand how your mood and well-being can change throughout the day depending on your use of your smartphone and social media. But then we also collect like objective data about your smartphone usage, and we're thinking about biological measures as well. So it's it's like bringing together different pieces of our well-being and reality to try to understand how digital technologies are really changing or influencing, impacting both negative and positive or neutral way.
Fascinating and so important, like you said. I think anybody in a coffee shop line would say, like, wow, I hear all about this on the news. And we know like a lot of people are studying this. There's books, people are on the Today Show or on podcasts that I listen to. And it's like really top of mind, especially for parents. I'm a parent and I think about this a lot. But you mentioned something there about biological measures. Are you like looking at my DNA, at kids' DNA? Like, can you tell me more about that? What does that mean?
Maybe in the future, but right now we are cutting some hair, just a really tiny quantities, less than the quantity that you will lose naturally during one day. But the cool thing is that through 1 centimeter of your hair from the scalp, we can go back of 1 month of your stress levels.
What? You can look at my stress from my hair?
I can.
How do you do that?
Well, this technique has been used in other studies in public health, even with pregnant women, to track their stress during the pregnancy. And basically, what we are trying to do right now, kind of for the first time, there are very few studies looking maybe more at saliva samples, but is to collect, biological information.
What's saliva? Sorry to interrupt you. Saliva samples? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, basically, when you want to work with biological information in a non-invasive way, hair samples, saliva samples, they are kind of the way to go.
Like my spit?
Yeah, your spit.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay. Okay. So like a
Saliva
mouth swab,
Yeah, yeah,
okay. Got it.
yeah,
Okay. So you can look at saliva samples, but you're doing hair. So
yeah.
you're cutting kids' hair. Okay.
I mean, I know it sounds like horrible respect to what it is. Actually, is completely painless, non-invasive. They're having a lot of fun. Even at some point in the school, they were making videos like, is that it? It's like, yes, because I mean, you cannot even notice that. But as I say, this is a new way that we are using to really try to understand the objective implication of screen time and the use of social media on our health, because the majority of the information today is based on self-reports, which obviously they're still very valid, but combining the objective biological information of our health and well-being is kind of the next step.
Can't hide from your hair, right? So like
And
if stress, is it basically stress that you're looking for in their hair?
cortisol levels, yeah, which is the
Which is
hormone of stress. And it goes
okay.
from 1 centimeter is equal to 1 month. So if you look at 2 centimeters, they're equal to 2 months, and you can go back in time.
So you're able to look at, like, let me just try to break this down. You're able to look at like 1 or 2 months of somebody's hair and match that up to what you've seen from their phones
Yes.
and what they're reporting on their phones and what they're saying they're doing at that time, and tell if what they were doing on their phones perhaps is leading to that increase in stress or decrease in stress. How can you, like, I know about like rings on a tree, right? Like when you count rings on a tree trunk, you can know how old the tree is and you can like count backwards, right? How do you do that with hair and like a moment in time? Or like if I was on TikTok or a kid was on TikTok, like how do you match that moment of stress to a moment in stress on a hair sample?
No, you don't match the moment, you match the overall like quantity of time. Because to match the moment, usually you prefer to use saliva samples that are more like attached to that moment. But what is the aim is to go back in time with measures like screen time, for example, or time spent on social media platforms over 1 month, and see if one of those variables are related to the cortisol levels.
That's absolutely amazing. That's like science fiction type of stuff. I've never heard of this before. Where would I learn about this? Or like, how do our families reacting? Because I would imagine this is stuff that's being shared like at conferences with other scientists or like in your work or like journals, academic journals or whatever. Beyond those spaces, how do you hope that people learn about your work? Where do you want this stuff to show up in the world?
That's a great question, Bringley. And honestly, that was also why we connected so much at the beginning, because you just want to foster science communication. And this is like really, I feel that in your heart, like this motivation to do that. And I had kind of the same, because I'm working with a lot of schools, high school principals, teachers, students, parents. Every time they come to us and they want to know more about the results. And during those years, I was like, what am I doing for them? Because the paper that we present at the scientific conference or we publish, they're not going to read it. Even when we give, like, we can give, yeah, a presentation of the results. But throughout my journey, I started to do more and more when it comes to science communication. For example, I've started science and arts project in Switzerland to communicate the results of my previous study. But I came here to Harvard to continue my career. So I was feeling like I need to go something back that, I cannot just come here with the data and doing amazing science stuff. I need to go back and think about something that can be long lasting. And the good thing is that in Switzerland, there are these schemes that are called Agora projects. Agora, as the Greek name Agora, which is, the place where people go to get together and talk and discuss about topics. The Agora project really aims to bring together the public and science in ways that are not just giving a lecture or a presentation, but like through practical activities, and through practical activities, the aim is to try to explain the key results of a scientific project.
Right.
So because I'm a very artistic person, I've always been as a kid, at some point I just wanted to do an art school and like going to fashion. I was just drawing a lot. I still draw a lot and I do that for my free time, even for my mental health. I was like, let's do this arts and science project. And we did. And it was very successful. And it was about asking teens to create their digital identity through a mask.
Like a mask that you'd wear on your face?
Yes, like a mask, a paper mask. We were
Okay.
giving them like a blank one and a lot of colors, glitters, even, pictures from magazines and all the things that you can imagine, a lot of materials to play with in order to think about how your identity is online. How do you represent yourself online?
Huh. So you would make your mask as a version of your digital
Yes,
representation, or like how you feel like you show up on social media
yes,
versus yourself when you're not wearing that.
yes,
Oh,
exactly.
how cool.
Yeah.
That's an amazing project. I would love to do that.
Oh yeah, we should definitely do that. And
Yeah.
it's even a great way to for team building. We have done that as part of the team among adults as well. And the nice thing is that you're giving teens the freedom to express themselves without judgment. And you cannot imagine how many even unconscious dynamics they came out from the mask. Like we gave them kind of 45 minutes, 1 hour to complete the mask, and they were drawing something using some colors. And maybe we're like, why are you using this color? Why are you doing that? I said, I don't know. But then after that, it's like we were asking them, okay, what's your mask about? Why it's all pink? Why it's all black? Why it's divided in two? So at some point, we were able to classify the masks because they were all different from each other, but there were also some patterns that were recurring in all the masks, even if the students, they didn't know each other. That
What
was
were
super.
those patterns? Can you tell
Yeah.
me?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So there were at least 4 patterns that we found. So the first pattern was the colorful one. These masks, they were like really with a lot of colors in a way that were kind of an artistic masterpiece. And when we were asking students, why are you using so many colors and glitter? And they were referring to, through social media or through specific platforms, I can just express myself and my passions, my hobbies. And so they were related to emotions. The colors, they were related to emotions. At the same time, we also had teens using more darker colors, like black, brown, blue. It was like, yeah, that is kind of when I see that using the smartphone is kind of too much, you know? And I feel myself like in a spiral, and I know it's not always healthy. So that is kind of the dark color.
Oh, wow.
That was the second, so the positive, the negative. The third
Right. Bright
one,
colors, dark
yeah,
colors. Okay.
third one was neutral mask. And that was pretty interesting. Like these girls, they were just doing the makeup to the mask. I would say like they like they were wearing the makeup. I was like, this is just me. Like the same way, like offline, online, I'm like the same. This is just me.
Right. I hear that a lot, that like kids often say like there is no difference between my offline world and my online world. Like it's just the same world. Stop like telling grown-ups need to stop saying like, that they're different experiences because I experience them the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, and maybe for boys was more like, oh yeah, because I like sports, I just follow, my favorite sport team or like the group of people that I'm doing sport with. So it's really like my passion, me, that's it. This is what I do. I have nothing to hide. And then the fourth category that was really interesting, it was like splitted mask. They were the
Like split in half. Almost like Phantom of the Opera or like a yin and yang type of thing.
yeah, exactly. So we had
Oh
masks
wow.
where we could see like a black and white or like half white, half colored, half black, half colored. And usually that was referring to the protective feature of the online mask. Like I can show myself in a more brighter way, in a more smiling way online, but at the same time, I'm hiding something, you know? But I know there are two different realities that are sometimes are contradicting each other. And so yeah, basically, or also yeah, reality versus virtual. So it can have a lot of meaning, be more authentic, less versus less authentic, showing just positive emotions versus having negative emotions, all these kind of things that actually we know from science. There are a lot of theories behind that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that lab was pretty much amazing, even for me as a researcher. Because in the end, it's always the same things that we see in the papers, but this time, done by teens in an artistic way.
And they were able to feel it and do something with it. Like you said, like art can be so therapeutic, it can be so healing. So by bringing those experiences into into something tangible and tactile, I could see that being really valuable for the youth, but also from a research perspective as well. Do you, do you find like that it's difficult to have youth or like whoever your target audience is, whether it's parents or youth or like even social media companies, do you find it challenging to get them to engage with your research and your findings? Like, or what's working or what's not working?
I think because I was always trying to put myself in teens' shoes, and to try to talk at the same level. I was not judging them for anything. I was welcoming any feedback and very mindful of class dynamics. I think that everyone was feeling to be able to express something, and that was working pretty well. Especially after the artistic part, they had a lot of fun, and the artistic side just allowed them to get more in touch with some emotions and content that otherwise, for example, when we give just lectures or like presentations where you're just trying to tell it through without involving them, that can work a bit less. I've also done a lot of presentations in school. At some point, I gave 9 presentations of 1 hour and a half in 1 week, but the format was, I didn't have the same level of feedback and involvement at all. It was just a science format, even a lot of data, graphic representation, not a lot of involvement. Q&A, just the classic presentation that we always do. Yeah, with them, doesn't really work that much, I have to be honest. Yeah.
So after doing 9 presentations in 1 week, you realized maybe this isn't working. Maybe we should try something else. And that's kind of amazing. Like if you think about like putting myself back in middle school or high school, like the number of like talks that we got from like scientists or some people, people doing interesting studies. I was lucky to have those, I suppose, like the access to that. But like if it's not connecting with the end kind of user, the intended audience, then why are we doing it? So like, what would you say to other researchers who are studying things that could actually make kids' lives better? Like if you wanted to share your research with kids, would it be this idea of like put them in the driver's seat, like give them something tangible to interact with in the concepts, and then and it helps to cement their learning? Is that kind of the advice you would give?
Yeah, and even more, like exactly as you said, after I realized that that was not working, I wrote the Agora project just for the students.
Right.
I was like, this is not working. It can work with parents and teachers. They can keep their attention high, but with students, definitely not. So, I mean, what's the value of all the work I've done if they cannot listen and take anything home from their data? I mean, I was presenting to the students their data at the same schools. But then here in the US, I mean, we moved forward with our, research, and we created the student advisory board of the project. So the student advisory board is telling us what to do to improve the project. Like, can you make some posters in the school? Can you bring the gadgets? Can you involve this group of teams? And you know what? It worked pretty well. Like, we followed the majority of their suggestions. And I mean, the project is working well. And for results dissemination, I will do the same. I'm not sure, like maybe there is some kind of funding opportunity similar to the Agora project also in the United States. For sure, we can think about something like that. But I would even add there, a student advisory board when I'm writing the project itself, just to make sure that there are like nice activities that I want to do.
That's so clever. And I think a lot of like different researchers could learn from you in this. Like the TLDR, right? Too long, didn't read. If you didn't watch the podcast, the one thing to take away so far is like stop doing rote presentations to teenagers. Bring them in, put them in the driver's seat, right? Listen to them and watch what they do with it. It sounds really incredible. And so I guess on that like kind of topic of where the research goes or like how it impacts the person that you want it to impact. Like obviously media, youth well-being is getting so much attention right now, like we said. What do you think the most common misunderstanding is? Like, I see this all over like mom Instagram. There's so many people talking about like, here are good shows for kids and bad shows for kids. And like, here's good screen time and bad screen time. And it's like very kind of shaming and negative for parents. What's a common misunderstanding you want people to get rid of? Or like you want like mom TikTok to stop talking about?
Yeah, like thinking black and white about that. I don't think it's realistic in general because our behavior is not black and white per se. The teen behavior is even more nuanced and it's so fascinating, like coming from neuroscience, when you understand how the teen brain is developing, there are so many things to consider. And it can be so powerful, but also so dangerous sometimes. But let's take the best part. Let's take the powerful part. So they can learn a lot and even expose themselves to new things and be much more reflective and aware of what we think. Every time I talk with them, they're like, but I know maybe I'm using the smartphone a bit more than what I'm supposed to. So it's not that we need to tell them this is good, this is wrong. I think we need to ask them, what does it feel to grow up with social media and this kind of tech environment? Because honestly, I don't know what does that mean. And I would like to know. And if I know and understand you better, I can also give you the tools to use that in the best direction in a way that is aligned to boost well-being or information seeking or like improve academic outcomes because sometimes they're asking for alternatives but I don't have it. It's like, okay, where is the adult here? Where is the community, even the school? So if we try to understand what does that mean to grow with that, we can better understand the nuances and integrate the use of technologies in a way that is healthy rather than condemning.
Trust kids because they know more than we think they do about their own kind of screen use, how to use it, how it makes them feel. They're a lot more wise to it than we would give them credit for. Yeah, I hear that. And so you've also studied a lot how certain types of screen use can even enhance well-being or happiness. I think that what I saw is like you like to flip this concept on its head a little bit and look at happiness and thriving. So, what does your science say about how digital media use can actually support youth mental health or well-being or happiness?
Yeah, definitely the most powerful like variable that we look at is related to the positive social relationships. So the fact that online we can maintain offline social relationships in a way that is powerful and that can allow us to stay in contact with like close friends and have that support network that otherwise we wouldn't have, especially when we live so far from each other. And also, calls, video calls, voice messages, all those type of communication that can really give something that is very similar to the in-person communication is extremely important. And it has been, for example, during COVID. I mean, we publish a meta-analysis and systematic review of social media usage and where we
Wait, stop. Meta-analysis and systematic review. Tell me what that is, Dr. Laura.
yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, sorry, that's too technical here, but basically, kind of immediately after COVID, when we had enough data in the literature, I led a review. So basically, I mapped all the studies that were looking at the use of social media during COVID and teen well-being. Because, we know that.
All of the studies, like all of, not just your own, everybody else's too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Also,
so cool.
yeah.
Okay.
It was like the status of the art for that moment in time, And what I've seen, because obviously we know their screen time and social media time increased, okay? But there were some usages like making video calls, like even looking at funny things can be a funny videos or, everything that make you laugh and group chats or among few people or with friends. So there were certain usage that actually they were protective of for life satisfaction, during that moment.
What do you mean by protective?
For well-being. Well, basically they were like a buffer because we know that well-being and life satisfaction of everyone kind of diminished.
Right.
But if teens were using technologies for these aims, somehow it was buffering that, decrease in well-being during that. While I may be looking too much at the news or also news spread out through social media, increase the sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. Yeah. And in general, just browsing at social media in general, it was kind of detrimental. So, I mean, there are certain usages, very specific ones that if done correctly, they can really improve mental health, or at least, in those scenarios, they were protective.
Okay. So to summarize, I heard that group chats, video chat, and like funny videos can actually improve our mental health or well-being during difficult times, or perhaps we can say in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that I missed? Group chats, video chat, funny videos.
One-to-one communication.
Okay. Texting, chatting.
Yeah, one-to-one, yes. And also like just being, mindful of your time with the phone, using that in a balanced way. Actually, in another study, that is one of my favorite ones, we created some categories of teens based on their online and offline behavior. And we wanted to see which are the teens with the best high school grades at the end of the year.
Okay.
And what we found is that we found 4 groups and we labeled that in different ways. The group that was showing the higher levels of well-being and higher school grades, it was the balance group. they were doing a lot of activities. They were online also to try to find some information for their schools. They were aligned with friends, but they were aligned in a balanced way, and they were also spending their time offline in a way that was healthier, like they were sleeping a bit more than other groups, doing homework, doing sports, in time with friends, and reading for fun a bit more than other groups. And this combination of like a balance between online and offline, that was really the most powerful thing that we have seen. Because at the same time, there was a group that was completely offline, and usually people would say, okay, they should be the one with the best grades. No, actually, no. And then there was a group that was more online than offline. So their offline life was not that balanced. And also their use of the online website and activities was a bit different. Maybe it was more time spent on video gaming and like gossip, like these kind of things, rather than, information or topics that can improve even like the knowledge in general can be, enriching somehow.
Right, like watching cooking videos and then trying those recipes with your parent or a friend.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that would be a good example of balance, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, finding a good balance between the two, that was the magic recipe, I would say. And we've seen that also like in other studies. So in the end, obviously we know like using smartphones and social media too much is detrimental, but as any kind of activities, honestly, even sleeping too much is not good for our health. Even working out way too much can be problematic at some point.
Sure.
So it's like this is the way of the majority of human behavior, as well as, I mean, if you don't do something today, like for the world how it is, you are also cut out from a lot of opportunities. So the secret again is to find a good balance.
A good balance. Okay. And that was going to be my kind of some of my last questions was like, how do we take what you've learned like this and apply it to like one thing you would say to parents, teachers, or teens? You can pick an audience that you'd want them to start doing differently when it comes to screen time. I'm hearing balance, but then earlier we said that that doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, and we shouldn't paint all kids or teens or youth with a broad brush. If you could give like a magic pill from your findings, what would it be? And who would you give it to?
I think I will give that to the adults, actually, not to the teens.
Okay.
Adults. Yes.
Hot take, Dr. Laura.
Because we in the end, we are the adults, and young people, they're just learning from us. The appeals to the adults are to not be too judgmental with young people. I really try to be more understanding and create an environment with more empathy and warmth, so they can open up about what they're doing online and you can really understand them. Second thing is, let's set some kind of rules altogether that everyone, even myself as an adult, I'm going to follow. Okay? Like we can use screen time and have fun and use social media, but maybe we can think about specific time in the day, or we can
Yeah.
say when we are all at the table for meals, nobody, even if I have a work call, nobody is using the phone because we want to just boost our offline connection. Okay. And this is very important because in the end, if we look at how much time we as adults spend online, it's really a lot. And then we want them to be able to self-regulate themselves and find a good balance when maybe we are the first one that we don't have a good balance. So I think it's always like finding the good balance for your group, and finding some common norms. In Italy, there has been a project called the Digital Pact. So a lot of families, they signed a digital pact in a little community, and they were like, we're all going to give to the students the phone at the age of 13, let's say. which means that before that age, the community took the responsibility to give them alternative activities, because this is what they're looking for alternative activities. They do. And sometimes they told me, I don't have an alternative activity. And so I stay online because everyone is online,
Right.
For sure, there are a lot of opportunities, but finding a good balance between the offline alternatives, the online alternatives, and the online that can be like shared in a safe way, in an empathic way, also with the adults. So it's not becoming a taboo. It's not becoming something that will look like, oh, everything is bad,
Thank you so much. I think those takeaways are so useful for parents, especially caregivers, teens, obviously. And I think we learned a lot for the broader research community today. And I really appreciate how you were able to kind of break all of this down in making your science and your research kind of this discoverable, understandable, and I think we just learned actionable. So I really appreciate you spending time with me today, Dr. Laura Marciano, and my dear friend, researcher, digital well-being expert. Thank you so much for spending time with me.
Thank you to you, Brinley. It has been an immense pleasure.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the Science to People podcast. A huge thanks to my friend, Dr. Laura Marciano, for sharing her insights and helping us see how the science of screen time is more nuanced and more hopeful than we really might think. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe and share it with somebody who might benefit. And if you're working to make science more accessible, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for listening.